the incredible, the fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, come one and come all to a film you've never seen before. But remember, folks, no refunds.
Hello and welcome to No Refunds, the podcast where we watch bad movies so you don't have to. I'm your host, Ben Reynolds, and this week we'll be talking about Kevin Connolly's 2018 film, Gotti, starring John Travolta as the Teflon Don himself. Joining me for this discussion, we have newcomer to Cold North Productions, Chris Kuhn. The peppy, Andrew Etchen.
Howdy, folks.
Oh, he did something different.
And Patrick, the Law Morris.
Hey, everybody.
No Refunds is the second podcast from Cold North Productions, so please check out everything we have going on over at coldnorthpro.com. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review wherever you found our podcast. And now, Gotti.
Let me tell you something. New York is the greatest city in the world. My city. I was a kid in these streets, and I made it to the top.
So, as we usually do, we are going to read our Google plot synopsis. This week it is particularly vague. I've been puzzling over it for myself for quite some time.
I've been looking forward to the Google plot synopsis. Like, I intentionally didn't read it because I was like, oh, this is going to be good.
All right, so here we go. Raised on the streets of New York, young John Gotti found his way into the Gambino crime family, eventually having the boss removed and becoming the head of the powerful family. His wife asked only one thing from John, to never expose their children to his profession. But he broke the vow, and John Jr. took his place as his father's capo.
That makes the movie sound better than the movie actually is.
Yeah, that actually makes it seem like there is like a real like running plot.
Cohesive plot.
Yeah, like, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I did see all of those things happen.
Just in a jumbled mess.
But I just don't remember them at all because none of it made sense.
Yeah, that was pretty awful movie. Pretty awful movie. It's I mean, but so we don't feel like that was really, I mean, not the most accurate of plot summaries because I mean it
sold the movie.
It sells the movie. It's just not. I don't feel like that's really what happened in the movie.
No, it's not at all.
I mean, those things did happen in the movie, but I don't remember the wife asking him to promise.
Yeah, I don't remember the wife ever being like, promise me, John.
I don't even really remember the wife talking, which I feel like is kind of one complaint that I had about the movie, is that none of the female characters were developed at all.
None of the characters were developed at all. It wasn't exclusively a female problem.
Well, they kind of tried to develop both John Gotti's, but
He's called Gotti after all.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I remember the wife talking after the brother died, but like that was it. Like the wife talked after the kid died.
Yeah, they cried, and then they were on the couch together, also crying. So.
I think maybe she did make it and promise that. Yeah, like it was after the kid died, because like, and after he killed the guy who killed the kid, who ran over the kid,
which just seemed inappropriate.
But, I mean, I guess that's kind of the point of the movie.
They were really upset about that dent in the car, though. Like, overly upset about the dent. He leaves that fucking dent in the car, and so she has to see it every day. Like, that's about how good the accents are, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Travolta's accent was terrible. Terrible.
Okay. Travolta in this movie. And
wait,
I know
we're on plot here. Let's
Sorry.
slow down. Let's not jump ahead. So more about that fucking terrible. Like it's just so I found the Gotti footage in the opening to be very cliche, and then it just jumped into the crime. I also have the note that old Travolta looks like a testicle.
See, I thought he looked like shitty Thanos.
Shitty fan.
Oh, just not great.
Yeah, no, I definitely agreed on that.
Thanos looks like a testicle.
Well, and that's like, so we had already, by 9 minutes and 26 seconds into the movie, we had already like jumped around to like several different timelines.
This
We'd already
non-linear
been on, like, 3 or 4
storytelling to
timelines.
the max.
Yeah,
It was edited so crazily.
then
Like it was.
the whole home instantly back to prison. Then he went to the dentist, and then like we figured out why the fuck he was going to the dentist. But at first, I was just like, wait, what?
Why the dentist?
Well, okay, so the non-linear storytelling is something that drove me insane throughout the movie because I had no idea what was going on.
What was fucking
what time
happening?
you're in?
Like it starts with Gotti telling the story at the river. Then it flashes back and forth between the conversation in the room and the past. And at one point in the movie, and I had to write this out, Gotti is telling the audience the story of himself, telling John the story of Johnson, telling John the story of how Johnson got Gotti arrested. It's a story within a story within a story within a story. And it's like, who the fuck, what the fuck kind of director sees, by the way,
Dedicated to Francis Gotti.
at the beginning of the movie, this was one of my favorite parts. At the beginning of the movie, just a Kevin Connolly film.
They should have just said
You're
directed
supposed to
by
take it
E from
seriously.
Entourage.
Yeah, you know, I'm the guy E from Entourage. Oh God.
I thought that it was ridiculous how they opened up with that fourth wall break, though, talking about
And then
everything,
it didn't
and
happen.
then ended it.
It was literally just the beginning and the end. That was
Yeah,
bookended it with
just
that.
like Goodfellas.
It was, yeah, okay. That's a perfect example because, okay, this movie was so try hard. It was trying to emulate.
All right.
Goodfellas.
Well, it sounds like we're about done with the plot here now. So,
Well, no. I got something else to add to the
all
plot.
right.
What the fuck crimes were they committing? Because there
They were
was
killing
a lot,
people.
They were killing each other. But like, what else were they doing?
Well,
And
they just didn't establish any of the small time crime, which was a failure in the movie too.
Not even small time crime, but like there was so I looked it up. I did some research on John Gotti because I had heard the name, but I had never really like known what he did. But dude ran some serious prostitution rings in New York, like hardcore, and it's like they didn't
Good for him.
focus on they didn't focus on the actual crimes that he was doing. They were like, yeah, he's a crime boss, but they don't show us any of the crimes. It's like if we had watched American Gangster and we had never seen Denzel mention drugs.
Heroin. Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, probably.
That would have been a weird movie.
It would have been very weird.
I mean, at least they did have the murder, which so it's like, okay, he's committing murders and stuff like that. Because like, yeah, he kills people right away, and that's like that. That's why they talk about the whole like him in our plot. We found out that he had the boss removed, so he became the head of the powerful family. But
Yeah.
now it's time for us to move on to the questions. So
Oh, God.
each film we go through, we will revisit these 6 questions to lead our discussion. Our first question is, how bad was it? Chris, how bad do you feel like it was?
Okay, so was the story pretty consistent with real life events? Yes. Was it edited in a way that it was almost impossible to follow?
Almost
Absolutely.
impossible. You're being very generous, Chris.
I am very generous. I mean, the totally inconsistent music selection. I don't know why Pitbull had anything to do with this.
God, yeah.
I know.
That was so
Although one of
terrible.
my favorite parts probably was that opening music scene where they actually have like the footage of John Gotti. That was probably my favorite part of the movie.
What was the line with the? Oh man,
Sports betting.
well, no, there's a line that they actually yell. Keep going. I'm gonna find this line really quick from that Pitbull song.
Okay.
Keep going. What they're saying.
And I mean, totally unbelievable ages. You're supposed to believe that this, 25 to 30-year-old girl is 16, and then they never age either her or John Jr.
Yeah, that
Like,
was one of
what
the
do you-
things I had the biggest problems with, is just John Jr. not being at all. Like, I've been really confused about the timeline. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, why does John Travolta look like a testicle in this scene? But his son looks the exact same as he looks like when he doesn't look like a testicle.
They drastically. So they put so much into John Travolta's makeup, and I like reading into this movie. There was like, that's the one thing that critics had to say that was like, yeah, the makeup was decent for John Travolta. Like, they did a decent job. I mean, I think that I guess I agree with them that the makeup was good, but it's just John Travolta in general that looks like a testicle.
Yeah.
And he wears a toupee badly.
Oh,
in real
he wears like 6 different fucking wigs in the movie. There's a lot of wig work there.
They focused so much on making him look old or young or, somewhere in between, but they did nothing with the son.
That's
John
Scientologist magic.
And then, I guess, and then Chris, you said
Witchcraft.
the girl. It's like so obviously in her late 20s.
Yeah,
And
when
she's
she
like,
says, I'm 16, and you're just like,
no, you're not.
you're 16?
You're not 16 at all.
You
You're
could be
hot.
30.
I couldn't even find that actress's age. I looked it up, couldn't find it anywhere.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I looked for her age, couldn't find it.
She's
said,
16,
2
dude.
things.
2 movies.
She's
The other
16.
movie, even worse, apparently.
No,
She's 16.
We're going to have to put it on the list.
The guy who played John Gotti Jr. has also been in some pretty terrible movies. He was in that one movie that the Coen brothers wrote and Angelina Jolie directed about the Japanese prisoner of war, but he was a minor role in that. That's the only other movie that he was actually like in that was any good.
Boy in the striped pajamas.
That is not the movie. But moving on. So what
Andrew.
Andrew, what to you? How bad was it to you?
Well, my favorite part of the movie was the credits, and I didn't even make it that far.
It was hard to get through. I will admit that I did fall asleep definitely for like 5 minutes.
Like half an hour.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was
I
a
maybe
half
got
hour.
like
It was.
I maybe got like halfway through the movie, and yeah, I definitely like fell asleep at one point. I probably woke up like 30 minutes later. So the movie is rather shoddy in my memory.
Not good.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
My brain
bad.
purposefully decided not to put all the pieces together.
Well, your brain did about the same thing Kevin Connolly did, so don't worry.
I wrote that it was literally one of the worst I've ever seen. I mean, I guess there's a reason that it has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
So it's got a 0%, the elusive 0%. I did not fall asleep during this movie, and that was by design. So I have a TV in my living room and I have a TV in my bedroom, and if I watch a movie, like if I watch something in my bedroom, if it's good, I don't fall asleep. Like I have difficulty falling asleep at night when I'm watching Star Trek, because like this is fucking interesting. But like if like Mortal Kombat, I was asleep in 20 minutes. This movie, I was like, all right, I'm going to watch this on the couch, so I have to sit up. And I'm going to take notes the entire time. And I made it through the entire thing, and I wish I hadn't.
Oh man, it was bad.
You're like, well, there's
2 hours
an
back.
hour and a half I won't get back.
An hour and 44 minutes.
So, I mean, we've basically talked about what made it so bad. I mean, it's the plot being so confusing, Travolta's accent, Spencer Lofranco's performance. That's John A. Gotti Jr. Like, I mean, he was just he literally. I wrote down that he looks like he's reading cue cards a lot of the time. Like he is just like he has no reaction to anything really. He just is just
He just looks very confused all the time. Actually, Ben, that's historically accurate. There was constantly a guy following John A. Gotti around with cue cards.
Telling him what to say to his dad.
Yeah, exactly. John Gotti just hired a guy and was like, I always want to feel like my son has my back. Never let me see you, but always follow me around and show my son what I would want to hear.
Exactly.
That's historically accurate.
Had the money.
So that was actually Kevin Connolly being faithful to history.
Clearly.
This movie is on par with 12 Years a Slave. And Saving Private Ryan.
Well. Now, I did have one other thing. Touching on back to the character development. I mean, there were some really, really important guys in this that I didn't freaking know who they were. I spent about 2 hours today just figuring this out. And so the guy in the bathrobe, I was like, why the hell is he in a bathrobe? And then he just takes off that character and he's a new guy. I looked it up. His name was Vincent Chingigante, and he was the overall boss. And it's like, that's never mentioned.
No, they did briefly mention that a little bit.
They briefly mention it, but then they introduced 30 other gangsters that they call bosses, and you're supposed to remember all of them.
Well, so they're all I was actually going off of that. I was at the beginning of the movie, I was thinking, wasn't John Gotti like a fucking Don? Why is he living in this like suburbs piece of shit house? Not piece of shit, but like, humdrum house.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, he's only an underboss right now. Granted, they call them bosses, but but I had no idea that we weren't at the point where he was the Don yet.
Yeah.
And I was, because they were just they were so focused on him, they weren't showing the context around him as far as like, this is the Don and this is like, what was his name? Francisco or whatever, the guy that he really wanted to be the Don.
Oh, Neil.
Yeah, instead of
played by Stacy Keach, Neil Della Croce.
Instead of the guy that they wound up being the Don and then Gotti killed him. There was that guy that Don really wanted to be, or that Gotti really wanted to be the Don. I don't know. They just did a really terrible job of depicting who's who, what's what, and it's like the hierarchy of the
status
game.
And yeah, absolutely.
And
that was
that's
the most annoying part.
That was something that I actually really enjoyed in the Godfather video game, was like you rise up through the ranks and they have like a very well defined power ranking as far as like, this is your place in the gang and you do not challenge people above you until you know you are going to win.
Right. Yeah. Like seriously, I mean, associate to member to capo or to capo soldier to underboss. Yeah, exactly. And that didn't seem to be developed at all in this movie.
And it's hilarious that a PlayStation 2 game from a B tier developer published by EA in 2005.
Yep,
depicted that better than fucking Gotti.
Yeah, that's the truth. So, our next question is, which character was the worst? Andrew?
Let's go with Travolta himself.
You're thinking John Travolta?
The big T.
That accent was awful.
God, he ruined it. He ruined the whole movie for me.
It was like him trying to do like a combination of like several different things. Like it seemed like he kind of wanted to be a little De Niro, a little bit of he wanted to be Tony Soprano a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like
and a little bit of Marlon Brando.
You gotta pick one. Like you can't just be like mix them all together.
And then every once in a while he would just flip back into like Chili Palmer, and you're like, God damn it, you're.
And there really was. It's funny you say that because now I'm realizing like there was a huge mixture of basically the Dons from the most successful organized crime movies ever. We had a lot of De Niro, we had a lot of Brando, we had a lot of Denzel, like a fair amount of Denzel, I would say. And like it all just mixed together, and even a little bit of Nicholson. And it just mixed together all so terribly. And he did them all really bad. Like really badly.
Yeah. The whole time it just seemed like it wasn't John Gotti depicted. It's just John Travolta pretending to be John Gotti.
Pretending to be other people. Like
Yeah,
Travolta pretending to be Gotti, pretending to be actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it the other day, and like, is Travolta really a good actor? Like,
No.
What's his best movie? What's his
Off,
best
maybe?
movie?
Oh, Face Off is bad fucking ass.
Oh, it's terrible.
But
no,
Terrible, but fun.
Face
Terrible,
Off is
but fun.
bad.
I love Nick Cage with those like octagon glasses.
So cool.
I wanted those so bad when I was a kid.
Still do. That movie is awesome.
I see he was in Hairspray and Puffin, like both good.
Okay, Pulp Fiction. All right.
He was also in Austin Powers in Goldmember.
That one's the worst of the three, though.
Still a great.
Love all of them.
Still a great.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot he played Robert Shapiro in American Crime Story. That was a pretty. Oh, and look who's talking. Which interestingly was directed by like either Nick Cassavetes or Barry Levinson. I can't remember which, or maybe it was Joe Johnston. One of the three. I happen to be. No, actually, I think that's completely wrong.
Oh shit! Boogie Nights.
He wasn't in Boogie Nights, was he?
No, what's
Grease?
that movie? No, not Grease. The other one with the dancing. Saturday Night
Kevin
Fever.
Bacon. Oh yeah, Saturday Night Fever.
Saturday Night Fever might be his best movie.
I don't know. I'd say I'd rather watch what's the one that came out after that where it's like cowboys dancing.
Who's Talking
Urban Cowboy.
Oh no! Look who's talking now.
Yeah, well, so it sounds like we're all
Where
pretty much in
those
agreement that Travolta.
No, actually,
Oh.
I actually don't agree with that. I think Travolta was bad, and John A. Gotti was bad, but the worst character of the entire movie was New York City.
Because they didn't establish it really as a character.
They didn't utilize the setting. It never looked like New York.
So, but therefore you've already lost because it wasn't even a character.
Oh, okay, that's creative. So the movie was filmed in Ohio.
See,
And you
exactly.
could
New
tell.
York City's it's not even a character.
No, I think the setting
Ohio,
was
Cleveland
so
is the
bad.
character.
It wasn't even filmed in Cleveland. Like, hey, we're going to try and emulate New York City in Ohio, but we're not going to go to Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't think I mean Cleveland doesn't look very much like New York City either, so
But it's the
That's why
closest.
everything was filmed, it seems, in like a room.
yeah. Well, yeah, pretty much.
There was a lot of indoor. I mean, it's like, it's fucking John Gotti. He's synonymous with New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the king of New York. And they just never established that it was in New York City. They never like flexed that muscle, and that should have been an integral part of the movie, and it was just never shown off at all.
Yeah, I mean, I respect your choice, but I disagree. I think I'm with Andrew on the John Travolta, John Gotti was pretty terrible. Chris, I guess you're kind of the deciding vote. If you vote for something else, then John Travolta wins. If you vote for New York City,
No.
then essentially
New York
John.
City
It's
wins.
yeah. If you
Come
vote for
from
New
behind
York
to
City,
win.
no, it doesn't. It's a tie.
I mean, okay. I didn't know that it was filmed in Ohio. That's terrible. Like, you're right. It's totally synonymous. I mean, John Gotti was totally synonymous with him.
They even talk about
With
it in the broken wall scene, breaking the third wall scenes.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, one of the people, at least for diversity, was Paul Castellano, the guy that they killed, who was the boss. He literally shows up in his own death scene. I think that's the only time. They talk about him a handful of times, but he never shows up. He opens the door and gets shot. It's like, what?
And that was the most New York looking scene of the entire movie.
True. It actually looked like the steakhouse where he was killed at.
Well,
oh damn.
I mean, I understand that, but I don't find that was the worst. I mean, his character just had so little time.
Travolta had so much screen time to be bad.
Exactly.
He had so much opportunity. And he really took it to win this award.
Exactly. That is why John Travolta is going home with our
me.
worst character award this week. So, that brings us to our next
Johnny
question. Which character was the best / most compelling? And I am going to go out on a limb here and throw out John A. Travolta, because the aging process, or John A. Gotti Jr. Excuse me, John A. Gotti Jr.
John Travolta Jr. is
I like the aging process that didn't happen, but then all of a sudden in the very ending scenes when they were starting to use actual footage in combination with the movie, it was like disorienting how he would age in one scene and then it would go back to him not being aged.
Yeah. You're like, where are we? What timeline are we in?
I mean, that made it a very kind of interesting. Well, and for a good portion of the movie, I kept asking Chris, like, "Wait, is that the same guy?"
Yes, he's just got spiked hair.
Why they're just changing his hair slightly and putting glasses on him to make him look older? That's how they're doing.
That's basically
that was probably one of the things that throughout the movie kept me the most interested.
Yeah, they seemed to communicate John A. Gotti's age as a direct correlation with his hair length. Because, like, he's got medium hair. He must be, like, in his 20s. He's got real short hair. He must be 18.
Well, no,
he's got long hair.
It was more like a cockatoo because it would be stood up more. It was stood up more when he was younger.
Oh, yeah, I guess. And it was, like, slicked back more like his father.
Yeah, except for it just never got very long and it was always short on the sides, like so you kind of had that penis style haircut, sort of almost.
That penis style haircut. Yeah.
So are you guys, who else do you guys think was the best / most compelling characters?
I actually realistically, I think Kim was one of the best characters. She didn't have a lot of screen time. The character didn't get a lot of development, but I think that the actress took what was there and did a serviceable job.
Wait, which one was Kim?
Kim was John A. Gotti's wife.
Oh,
the girl that was like, "I'm 16, Johnny."
Yeah. Megan Leonard.
Like she did an okay job with what was there, and like the scene where they were coming for John A. Gotti, and she had to say goodbye, and the kids. It was this rushed goodbye, very stressful. It seemed like she was delivering something there.
That scene cracked me up too because neither of them had aged at all, but the kids were probably 6 years younger than them.
That made no sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that the actress took what was there and delivered something that relative to the rest of the movie was good.
That's fair. Chris, what about you?
I'd say I liked Gas Pipe the most.
Oh,
he wasn't in as much as he should have been, but that torture scene was actually kind of badass. Seriously. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and where he's hanging there?
Yep. I can make it all end.
It was very very Casino Royale inspired.
Oh, yeah. They actually mostly did that to him. They tied him to a chair and they beat him for hours with a baseball bat and then shot him. So it was made slightly more cinematic. Yeah.
This conversation is way less fun when we realize that all this stuff actually happened.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, what about you? You're essentially, if you vote for Kim, then Pat wins. If you vote for Gas Pipe, then Chris wins.
I don't know who any of those characters are.
John A. Gotti was the son. You saw him. You must have.
Okay.
But Kim was hot.
Slept through that part. Well, here you go. Just because I love you, Pat, I'm gonna vote with Chris.
Fuck you.
Gas Pipe. Gas Pipe is the most interesting character this week.
See, okay, so that's actually, Chris, what you're saying about Gas Pipe, I think is like, it's making me think differently about the movie, because it's like the actress who played Kim took something that was not great and brought something that was like, it's okay. And like, I think Gas Pipe did the same thing. Like, he delivered something that was at least somewhat compelling. And like, so if you take a look at small elements of this movie in a vacuum, it's like, this isn't bad. Like, small elements of this movie alone, they're not bad. And in fact, I would argue that some of them are even leaning towards good.
Yeah.
But it's just the conglomeration.
It's like alphabet soup.
So much.
I definitely was noting that. Yeah, there were, and Chris and I were both talking about how there are good scenes, but then overall, it's just put together terribly.
Yeah, and Megan Leonard is hot,
and some of the casting was terrible too.
Oh,
I mean, he had both his wife and his daughter in there. Kelly Preston as his wife, and Angel Travolta as the oldest daughter. So it was a family affair.
John Travolta did, not Kevin Connolly.
Yeah. One thing that I didn't like about it, and this is more just like a personal hang up, but one thing that I didn't like about it was I was looking at the movie on IMDb during and after the movie, and they had like John A. Gotti was like at the premiere and whatnot. I just felt like they were like glorifying this really, really shitty guy.
Totally agree.
Just wait till we get to half-assed internet research this week. But we're still on questions. So, was it so bad it was good? I think we can pretty easily say that no, it was not so bad it was good. This movie was just terrible.
So we've talked about the line of like, it's bad, and then you cross a line and it's like, okay, now it's so bad that it's good. And I think that this movie actually found a new line of like,
past that.
It's so bad that it's good, and then it's so good that there's another line where it's just bad again. Like, yeah.
And that's where it's such a ruined opportunity.
When your plot just is that fucked up, you can't. It's hard to make a fucking good movie, or a movie that like you could even say was so bad it was good. Like, you just can't. Like, it's just impossible to fucking follow. You would really have to watch that movie like 4 times to really understand what was fully going on, I think.
And there wasn't really a plot to begin with, and that's one of the biggest problems with biopics, is that like there's not. It's very difficult because people's lives don't follow a typical arc, or very rarely do they follow a typical arc. Events in people's lives follow an arc, and so like if you watch American Gangster, it follows Frank Castle as he does this thing. So it's not really a biopic about Frank Castle. It's a movie about what happened, like his like how he created these drugs and sold them, and how he was hunted down. And if you like, the same thing goes for I totally forgot. But like Gotti, they just followed the events of his life. Oh, same thing goes for Zuckerberg in The Social Network. Is like they followed the events of the creation of Facebook and him getting sued. That's what that movie was about. It wasn't about specifically Zuckerberg. Whereas they were just so committed to portraying the events of his life, regardless of like
it was overly biopic-y.
Yeah, regardless of a start point and an end point, they were just like, yep, we're just going to show what happened in his life, and that's not interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you lose people.
Absolutely. So it sounds like, I mean, basically what you're also arguing there is that it would have been better as a Netflix or HBO series. Which is our last question.
I think so, and I think that they could have, like, if they had profiled like his, like, you know, establishing and helping with crimes, they needed to lean on the crimes, because the crimes are the glue that hold these movies together.
Well, we basically got it as an HBO series. It's called The Sopranos, and it was fucking one of the best TV shows ever.
Exactly. And so, I mean, the crimes are the glue that hold these movies together. And so, like, you know, American Gangster was about the drugs, and The Godfather was about the drugs and the transition of power from Don Corleone to Michael, and
then to whatever the third one was.
That's right. Oh God, don't remind me.
I know, right?
And then hold on, I have it written down here somewhere. And so then The Departed was all about the microchips, right? There is crime that holds this together. And if they that's the central theme, that's the thing that all of these characters have in common. And if they had more time to focus on the crime and show Gotti taking part in these crimes and his interactions with other people as a result of these crimes, and how he kind of put his eye on the mark of I want to be the Don, or I want to be second in command. And that's when he would have put that one guy that died in charge. Then that would have been better. And that could have been more fleshed out as a Netflix or HBO series.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit slower paced than the scene to scene to scene to scene, time frame to time frame kind of thing that we did get.
It's strange that I want more of this movie, because that would make this better.
Yeah, no, I kept thinking that it would, because that would have the fractured cuts and the fractured editing would not have felt as fractured if it had more, because then each of those scenes would have had more time, and you probably could have actually gotten away with it if you had you could have had used multiple different aged Gottis in the same episode if you had just
multiple actors
or even just that probably would have been smarter. But then also just using you would have just longer time for each scene, so that you could establish more of what is actually happening in a scene, because that was one thing that I kept noticing, is that the scene would start and then 2 seconds later it was over after very little had happened, that to make me actually understand why I cared about that scene. And so
it just moves with such a pace that I watched this thing where it was almost fully about John Gotti. And in 45 minutes, they explained all of these events, and I'm like, oh, that's what happened here.
That's what I was watching.
Yeah, they didn't make it cohesive enough to understand where the heck any of this was coming from. 1 minute, Paul Castellano's getting whacked, and then the next, he's being, promoted to the boss. But where was he at before then? It didn't make any sense the way they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they so I spent an absurd amount of time thinking about the layout of their house. Because you see the stairs from the entryway up to the living room, and then you see the stairs from the kitchen down to the
living room,
den area.
Yeah.
And I was just I spent too much time thinking about the layout of their house. But you're right that it just went straight from one thing into the other, and there was no transition. And suddenly John A. Gotti was a made man.
Yeah.
It was the proudest day of everyone's life. And I was what did this character do to earn this?
Yeah, exactly.
He beat up somebody
and
he got in a couple fights.
That's basically
right.
it.
Thanks, Ben. I didn't notice.
Yeah.
I definitely felt like all of the gangsters too. And obviously a lot of them did dress that way with the big ass pinky rings and everything. But they were just so cliche looking.
Very
my first gangster,
Yeah, gangster
Halloween costume. Yeah,
it's something you would buy at what's that store called, Halloween Town or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. They just went there and cleared out all of those.
All right, so that about wraps up our questions. So now it's time to throw out some half-assed internet research. We gotta pay homage.
Internet research.
Yeah. We got to pay homage to the rewatchables from the Ringer Podcast Network. It's a classic topic, and I feel like it's perfect for a movie, or for terrible movies too. So, yeah. development on this film started in 2010 by Fior Films, and they secured the rights from John Gotti Jr. That is why John Gotti Jr. was so heavily involved, because John Gotti Jr., I'm sure, was like a script supervisor or something like that, basically, probably. I'm sure
something.
I'm sure he.
And that's why they were able to glorify it, because like
that's the thing, yeah.
That seems like that's, and I keep going back to American Gangster, and I think that the reason I keep going back to that is because I think that that's the movie that this movie was trying to emulate the most, in that, like, yes, it's like this like fun gangster story, but at the same time, these are real events. And like I said, Chris, like, if you think about it, man, like, if you think about the shit that this actually happened, it's like, that's fucked up.
Yeah,
like, I remember
absolutely.
after seeing American Gangster, I thought to myself, oh shit, Frank Castle is like actually out there somewhere. And that's fucking scary. And like, I keep going back to American Gangster. What I really liked about that movie, and that's still an amazing movie. I really liked about that movie is like they really vilified Frank Castle, and they really they depicted this stuff as disgusting and like absolutely heinous, terrifying stuff.
Yeah, not a nice guy like, whatsoever, not to be honored or glorified.
They didn't sugarcoat it like this movie did. This movie was like, and that might be why, Ben, I didn't know that he was so involved, but like that might be why they didn't show the crime.
Oh, yeah.
He's trying to bury it.
I don't know if you ever saw the movie Notorious.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one.
Okay. One thing I liked about that is they showed the good and the bad. He was an asshole. He would, like, he threw his wife through a door basically once, and he was involved in some shit.
But that movie is still terrible.
Hey, I liked it.
I heard it was bad.
Now the main thing I liked about it though is they didn't try to sugarcoat it. They actually showed how he wasn't a good person all the time. Not that he deserved to die necessarily, but they weren't like, "Hey, I'm out here committing murders. Aren't I a nice guy in prison?"
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I just going on another movie that does a similar thing. I absolutely love 12 Years a Slave. And it's because it's like I think that people really like to pat themselves on the back about like, yeah, I take race relations and like the race history in this country really seriously. And they like to feel good about themselves. And they talk about like, oh, The Help. Like, The Help was such a good movie. It was, but like, no, it fucking wasn't. Like in The Help, a woman gets beat by police officers with batons, but the camera pans away. Whereas like in 12 Years a Slave, it's like Michael Fassbender. I don't know if you've seen the movie.
I haven't.
Chris or Andrew. It's excellent. You should watch it.
Yeah.
But like in the movie, there's a scene where Michael Fassbender is the owner of this plantation, and he hands the main character, who is one of his slaves, a whip, and he says, "Whip her," and he's like, "I won't do it." And Michael Fassbender just like leans in and all quiet, just whispers, like absolute stellar performance. Whispers, he's like, "You beat her, or I will kill every other on this plantation." And like the camera doesn't pan away; it shows what happens, and it's just fucking terrifying, just brutal. And it's like, that movie doesn't sugarcoat it. That movie isn't spoon feeding me. It's not holding my hand. It's treating me like an adult. And that's what I like about 12 Years a Slave. That's what I like about American Gangster, is it's telling the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next piece is that Barry Levinson, Nick Cassavetes, and Joe Johnston were all in talks to direct this movie. Barry Levinson, obviously, is the director of...
They were intoxicated while they directed this movie?
Wait, what? No.
E from Entourage was intoxicated while he directed this movie.
Hopefully that's his excuse. But Barry Levinson, everyone would recognize from The Rain Man and The Natural. Nick Cassavetes, director of The Notebook and Alpha Dog.
Nope.
Joe Johnston is the director of the 1995 Jumanji, as well as Captain America: The First Avenger.
Oh, good movies. They picked the worst guy that was up for it.
I mean, it sounds. I think that based on, it sounds like there was just the development was problematic because they didn't start. If they started development in 2010, and they didn't start making the movie until 2015, and it sounded like Barry Levinson, Nick Cassavetes, and Joe Johnston all passed. So,
okay. So they couldn't.
It was probably because John A. Gotti was going to be a big part of it, and they probably did want to avoid sugarcoating.
It was probably an integrity thing.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't come as a shock to me that E from Entourage doesn't have a ton of integrity.
Exactly. So there were some interesting things about casting. Apparently, Lindsay Lohan was at one point in talks, but it didn't say what role.
Ben, you froze.
Lindsay Lohan
was in talks to play. It doesn't say what role.
Oh, hopefully it would have been the wife.
I was thinking like either Mrs. Gotti or Kim Gotti. I guess the John Gotti Jr.'s
not
wife.
Kim. I would have loved to see Lindsay Lohan and John Travolta as on-screen husband and wife.
The chemistry there.
God.
That would
chemistry.
That would have been stellar.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because I don't know if Lindsay Lohan could have played 16 anymore, but that girl could not have played 16 either.
With the way Lindsay Lohan looked at 16, she had trouble playing 16 when she was 16.
That's true. So then these next two are what I think would have actually made this movie a lot better, but they probably So Joe Pesci was supposed to play Angelo Ruggiero.
Shocker.
And but
Angelo, really?
Yeah, in early development, Pesci signed on, and he gained 30 pounds in order to properly portray him. But after having his salary cut and being recast as the Lucchese underboss, Anthony Casso, he sued Fior Films for $3 million. The case was settled out of court, and Pesci left the film.
Wow. So that's where the majority of the budget went.
That's why they couldn't manage to afford to age John Gotti Jr. Or even put gray in the sides of his hair because
even that, just a little dye.
Yeah, that would have made it look a little better.
Just go to Walgreens, get some Just for Men.
I also kept seeing that Al Pacino was rumored to be in talks for the film. Also, I would guess that they probably went to him to be Gotti first instead of Travolta.
So maybe, but like I saw some side-by-side comparison photos of Travolta and Gotti, and like he looks the part. Like, it's bad, but he looks it.
So then, who do you think would Pacino have been? Like one of the other like bosses, probably.
Maybe they had a bigger role written in for one of the other like players that like Castellano, who Chris, you said was just in basically that one scene.
Yeah, I can't remember him being because he wasn't. If you remember the very, very beginning when he's agreeing with Neil and creepy Italian Mike Pence looking dude, they both. That's all I can say. I have no idea who that guy was, but he was the only one it seemed with like an actual Italian accent throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, he was definitely creepy Italian Mike Pence.
Yeah, and so. I don't know. Maybe there was a part in there. I mean, because actually, Casso was a gas pipe, which I can definitely see Joe Pesci nailing that. And then I could see maybe Pacino rocking, what was it? The guy with the limp, Chin Gigante.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that would have actually been good. All right. So apparently the movie was supposed to originally open in November 2017, but Lionsgate, their distribution was seized, and the film was sold back to Fior because the producer decided they wanted a wider release than Lionsgate planned. because apparently Lionsgate was trying to be cautious with it, and there's
I'm sure
apparently some
Lionsgate
sort of
saw it and
clause.
was like, all right,
There's
we gotta chill.
There was a clause in the contract that let Fior buy it back, and so they exercised that clause and bought it back. And so then it had a limited. It still had a limited release. Like the limited release was 503 theaters. So that makes me wonder what Lionsgate was thinking, like 50 or something. But it was pretty.
Lionsgate saw it and they were like, "All right, we got to release it."
So apparently, it was projected to make 1 to 2 million in its opening weekend, but it made 105,000.
Oh my!
That's probably oof.
Oh no! Sorry. No, that was okay. That was Thursday night preview. Oh, sorry, I'm misreading this. That was from Thursday night previews and a total of 1.7 million in its opening weekend. So it hit in its projection. It finished 12th. It finished 12th of that weekend. Yeah, it did almost make back the Joe Pesci money. But MoviePass accounted for 40% of the tickets sold, leading one independent studio head to tell Deadline Hollywood, "It used to be in distribution. We'd all gossip whether a studio was buying tickets to their own movie to goose their opening. But in the case of MoviePass, there's no secret. They're literally buying the tickets to their own movie."
Wow.
In its second weekend, the film dropped 53% and made $812,000.
Just for comparison, so you said 1.7 million in the first weekend?
Yeah.
In its first weekend, Red Dead Redemption 2 did 750 million.
Jeez.
Yeah, well, and that's a video game, but in any case.
But still, badass.
So then we were talking about our friend Pitbull and his wonderful song, which let me drop this Pitbull lyric on you guys. "There's rules and codes, won't break them for no one unless you're a fool like that fucking prick Sammy the Bull." That is a line that Pitbull sings in the opening credits.
See, Chris, that's how Pitbull was related to this movie. Obviously, he rapped about it.
That's the important part.
Moving on.
So this movie was scored by Armando Cristiano Perez, who is a top 40 producer known for his work with Pitbull. And so that is how Pitbull got hooked up with doing some of these songs. Does not make sense why you'd pick a Latin top 40 pop producer to make an Italian mobster movie. But Entourage had some thought there, I guess.
He works in mysterious ways.
All right, guys. So we don't only watch bad movies and TV. So let's talk about some of the stuff that we have genuinely enjoyed watching lately. Chris?
Oh, geez. I haven't been watching too much. I watched too much American Gangster type stuff this week, just trying to piece together what this movie was about. But honestly, I would suggest it. It's really good. It's on Netflix. I'm forgetting what it's called, but they go from the 70s all the way through basically the ending when, John Gotti and the last, big mob boss went to jail.
Thanks, Robert Mueller.
Omerta goes away. Yeah, I know.
How come Robert Mueller wasn't how come Robert Mueller wasn't a character in the movie?
Well, why Robert Mueller?
Because he was the attorney who took down John Gotti.
Was he?
He was.
Also, why didn't they
Rudy
focus
Giuliani
on that?
was a part of that too.
But I think he was more. Well, I know that Robert Mueller was the head attorney.
Huh.
But in any case, that's where he cut his teeth, as they say.
So, Chris, you enjoyed the ancillary research more than the actual movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was like a puzzle that I had to put together.
All right.
Andrew, how about you?
I started watching Handmaid's Tale. Gotta say, it's not for me.
I love that show. I never got caught up on it.
I watched 2 episodes and was like, yeah, nah, bruh.
Yeah, that's about where I ended,
this
too.
This is fucking weird. This show is really weird.
Fair enough. And Patrick?
So it sounds weird for me to watch, but I started watching. I'm 2 episodes into This Is Us. and it's kind of
Just
weird
love that.
but like it's actually kind of fun character dynamics, and they tell the story across 2 different like time frames. So it flashes back to when like the basically it's about these triplets and Annie, and it flashes back to when they were kids and tells the story of like their dad and then them as adults and like how they're handling life now.
The story of their dad.
And it's kind of like cool character dynamics. It's a well-written show at the very least.
I've heard that when you get into the newer seasons, they go to Vietnam eventually.
Oh, can't wait.
I'd recommend
It's beautiful.
I recommend the Netflix adaptation of Sabrina.
Really? Or is that
Teenage Witch? It's actually pretty great.
okay?
Because it's really dark. It's like actually like fucked up and like dark and creepy. It's not like the old like sitcom at all. It's not even a some tape show. It's just like it's more of a drama.
And what have you been watching?
I watched Outlaw King, the Netflix original. It's great. I would definitely recommend it. It is directed by Dave McKenzie, who's the same guy who directed Hell or High Water, which also had Chris Pine and was a great movie too. It's essentially about Robert the Bruce and the Scottish history, and I definitely recommend it. Good
All
watch
right.
on Netflix.
All right.
All right.
Gloves?
That wrapped up our this week's discussion of Gotti. So don't forget to check out our incredible website, coldnorthpro.com, where you can see everything we do in one place. Listen to us.
Is generous.
Listen to us weekly on our other gaming podcast, Hard Reset. And next week we'll be watching Paul Verhoeven's 1997 sci-fi calamity, Starship Troopers.
It's an amazing movie.
To watch
It's the best movie ever.
If you'd like to watch before the discussion, it's available to watch with a Hulu subscription. See you next time, and don't forget, no refunds.
Not getting your money back.
Yacht.
That's all good. I love it. I like all good. I love it. That's all good. I love it.